we have to go deeper into the ocean and oceany themed things and sea witchcraft. That's what we're doing in this episode. Hi, I'm Thorn in the Midnight Ballroom. That's the name of the podcast that you're currently watching. And I think this is episode 17, but I could be wrong. And I use he, him pronouns. Welcome to my Gothic grotto. One reason I chose that word because it is for my space is because it sounds like a mermaid cove. So yeah. Okay, roll the intro. We're going to drink our mermaid coffee. This was the only choice I could have possibly gotten for my mug this time, and I only have one mug. No auxiliary, but this is my mermaid mug from Cracker Barrel, of all places. I got it this summer. They had a lot of this, like, tan, blue, gold, kind of vintage-looking mermaid-themed stuff. So there's a mermaid facing away from us on the cup and reaching out to hold a starfish. And what I love about her is that she is a little bit 3D, like carved or sculpted. It's a ceramic cup, I think, but like she's a little bit out from the cup. So that's cool. Well, this isn't my auxiliary coffee mug, but it is another mug that I just have some orange juice and Diet Mountain Dew in, because I do that sometimes. And it's the one that says September with some birds on it. And I like this one because, well, we are in September right now, but like my patron god, Gwyn, as you may know, if you know me, his feast day, or the day that his modern day devotees have decided to celebrate his feast, which is based partly on like reconstructing lore, partly on gnosis. But yeah, it's in September, on the 29th actually. And this feast day will be the 1-year anniversary of when I got top surgery, so that was a wild coincidence last year. Getting top surgery on my patron god's feast day. I was like, okay, then I guess it's a sign. I guess you're saying it'll be all right, and it was. Anyway, this is my co-host, co-goat, whose name is Bandros. Oh, I said his name without stuttering this time. Yeah, he's a beanie baby, a goat with sparkly horns, and he's mostly green and blue. He's very comfortable on his little blue pillow that I made him with the crocheted rainbow scarf, which is currently a goat blanket, so I'm just going to leave him there. But anyway, I have been doing several crochet projects that are like beachwear, because in California it's finally getting cool enough that I want to go to the beach. And I just have this weird feeling like it's time for beach things, like it's time for ocean stuff. I feel like I've always felt this extremely deep call to the sea, like the elves in Tolkien, like the sea longing, as they say, like that's always been there. And as a pagan, I have a bit more of a framework for ways to understand that, but it does feel really nice to be able to go back to the ocean, and I think I'll have a lot more chances to go there when I'm living in my new place, which will happen soon, hopefully before Halloween. But the person I most want to be close to in terms of where I live is my chosen brother Brian and their family. So they go to the beach fairly often, so, because Brian also feels that way about the sea. So I'm like, yes, someone I can hitch a ride with. I actually did that when I visited them this spring, so that was a really cool day. Yeah, so yeah, updates. It's been really hard waiting for things to move ahead and for people to get back to me that I'm waiting on. But I did finally get some news that was good. I know it's moving forward. I've been pretty vague about this, but like it involves my final legal separation from my ex and some resources that I didn't know about that I'll be able to use in helping to build my new life. I'll just put it like that. Um, so it's really nice to know that I can work on building my business in a space where I feel safe and have more space to actually do it. Because it's really hard to do that here, and I don't like to go into detail on about the situation here, but you did hear me say I don't feel safe here, and that's unfortunately true. But I'm wondering whether to say like, but don't worry about me, because like I don't want you to, but also like, you know, it's a situation. So anyway, hopefully I will be out of here soon. And right, so speaking of Brian, they wrote a really cool book that I've talked about before. It's called Vikaro. That's also the name of a path that both they and I are on. It's based in the specific tradition known as modern Minoan paganism. There are other Minoan reconstructions and I can't remember what the other one is, but like there are other Minoan based paths, but so like it's important to me to specify it's this one. I'm not claiming to speak for everyone who practices some form of Minoans inspired spirituality. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, and a lot of what I say is going to be gnosis. Some of it, actually, a lot of it, I my understanding is like a lot of it is also based in the research that the people who have started the path are doing, like Brian and one of our other close friends. But I don't have enough knowledge to know, okay, here's the source for this thing, or this thing is just gnosis, or not just like merely, but just like primarily gnosis. And I think I'm supposed to just focus on learning to believe in my own um, ex, ex, experiences, because that's difficult for me for different reasons. So I think that's one reason why my deities, well, Gwyn mainly tries to steer me away from worrying too much about what the lore says, um, because it can still be valid even if it came to me through means that I cannot prove, and that's fine. Anyway, here's the book. It's backwards because this is flipped, so I may look a little bit different to you when I figure out how to flip my camera when I'm in my new place, but I don't want to make it weird by flipping it now, if that makes sense. So anyway, this is a book with a vague, kind of blurry golden cover with a single stone with symbols from linear A on it, which say Vikaro, which is the title of the book. And a couple, so we're reading through it and with some friends. We have our weekly Gwyn day on Zoom, so we just hang out and chat. And when Brian can be there, they've been reading parts of the book to us, which is great. Like, it's like we've been reading the book by ourselves, but it's so nice to have the author also there to read it. So we had read. This actually wasn't one of the scheduled Gwyn days, which are on Thursday. This just because that's the day that we always had our Gwyn day when we were doing this type of polytheist chat thing every day over Zoom. Like, it became a thing during the early pandemic, and it's not every day now, but it's still like often. And so this was actually on Monday when we were like, let's just hop on Zoom and read another chapter. So we read one called Sons of the Sea, which is one of my favorites. If you are familiar with Hellenic or Greek myth, you might recognize a lot of it as I'm not going to read it right now, but it's very similar to the story of one of the stories about Dionysus and the pirates and the dolphins, that story. So this one is similar to that. It can be about Dionysus, but he's never named in the text. What's more important is one of his, or there does seem to be a name for the deity it's about in this book that's more important. And I have to explain some things about the Minoan pantheon in just a second. But in this version, when the storm rises around the ship, one of the people on board recognizes who they've captured, and the one who's tied to the mast. So he comes down and cuts the bonds of this god that he knows from his own family history, and they're the ones that turn into dolphins and swim off. And I've been directed to look at that story as very similar to what I'm going through right now. So I don't think I can say anything more about that, or there's nothing more that feels like it's right to say about it. Not like, oh, I can't say more, just like I'm not sure what else there is to say. But there is a song that I feel expresses it better than words. So a bit later I'm going to sing that, but I may want to show some crochet first. But anyway, the thing about the Minoan pantheon is it's very blurry in terms of who is who. There's a saying my friend likes to say that that has been impressed to her, or about individuation being problematic, just as in it's hard to draw strict lines between the various beings, and they seem to like it that way. So my patron god, Gwyn, that's his Welsh name, does, and this is like gnosis, as I said before, meaning things that the gods or spirits have told us directly rather than being through lore or like physical evidence type of thing. So anyway, he has an identity over in this pantheon as one of the three sons of the three mothers, who are all sort of different evolutions almost of the older one mother and one son in the Paleolithic times. Again, I'm talking from spiritual experience and the personal gnosis. And the three brothers, the three sons, like they're brothers. They could be aspects of each other, or they could be in individuals. And I think they're both. It just depends how they want to show up. So it can be a bit difficult to get your head around. But then, like speaking from experience, but then also there's a related trio of they're other identities of the three brothers basically, but they're not always one to one. Like they could be any of the brothers, like Gwyn. Actually, Dionysus is one of them, and then there's also Taros Asterion. So any of them could be one or more of this other trio, including at the same time. That's my understanding anyway. And the other trio is more about a way of doing things in the world, or like being. It's hard to. I'm just gonna say the names that I know the trio by. It's dancer, lover, and hunter. So the god that is in the story in this book is actually named as the lover. So he is often, I feel like, most associated with Dionysus and the sea mother. But for me, he's also shown up as Gwyn, but still that same deity. It's almost like there's a bunch of connection points that a bunch of different lines that different deities are, and there's a connection point that any of them could go through that is this deity called the lover. That's one way it was explained to me, actually, earlier this very evening. So anyway, we read that, and then unexpectedly later that afternoon I was invited by one of my friends to go to the beach, which I haven't been to in months. And I haven't been to the beach down here in Southern California in years. So I found myself at the sea just after reading the story, and I was like, that's, as my friend and I said, this trip has been weirdly pagan even for us. And we do a lot of weirdly pagan things. But, so trying to think what I want to do next. I want to show you some crochet. So first, the finished object. It's my rainbow butterfly beach wrap, and it's made of the rainbow, it looks like a mermaid type of rainbow, if that makes sense. It's the unforgettable red heart yarn, and it's really soft, and then the stitch is the same butterfly stitch as in the butterfly stitch prayer shawl, which I'll put the link to. I found it on Ravelry years ago and made my trans pride cape with that stitch, and then I also made, oh, here's one of the, as you can tell, this is a different yarn. I'll mention that in a minute, but this is one of the ties since it goes around my waist. I also reverse engineered the lace that I put on the edge of my trans pride cape. So if people still want, I think someone asked me for a tutorial video for that lace edging. I don't know where to find it now, but I can still do it as we see here. So I was able to figure out what I did and do that, and that just felt very like this being from my like 2 stitches that I used in my trans pride cape. Oh, and actually this is a version of the shell stitch, which I also used. I used the shell stitch on the ties. It's just one shell wide, and it kind of waves back and forth because of the turning chain. But I just felt like it was very like transformation and harking back to things that are important to me and about me. And the butterfly feels like a connection to one of my spirit friends who's very important to me. I think I've mentioned her before. Well, I've mentioned her before on here. Her name's Taralyn. I won't go into that whole subject, but that's who I was thinking of. And you may notice there's other yarn that I used as well, because I ran out of this yarn. I only got 2 skeins because I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I got this, the unforgettable, on my birthday, so that also felt meaningful. And then this yarn, which is sadly discontinued, but it's the Lion Brand Shawl in a Ball. I think this colorway is Prism, and it's also rainbow and sparkly and a lot lighter. Well, it feels a lot lighter weight than the other one, which is kind of softer and jewel tone and also a bit just slightly chunkier, but like the whole thing is just very light and airy, and it's so beautiful. And I used, at least for part of it, I used this hook, the Aquarius, which is this beautiful furls hook that's like a swirls of deep blue and white in the 6.5 size, because actually it was Winter Nightmare who I have bought several cool things, including patterns from. Crafty Silent Lamb. That's their shop on Etsy. Then they're also Winter Nightmare Crochet, I think, on Ribbler, so I'll try to put those links down as well. But anyway, they told me that if you crochet with a larger hook, it gives a nice drape. So this is like a 4 weight yarn, but doing it with a 6.5 just really makes it flowy. So that's nice. And my whip, I'm doing the same thing, crocheting 4 weight yarn, but with that same hook. This is my shell ocean themed poncho. It's in a very loose diamond lace with the occasional shell, and it's several colors of wander yarn. You might remember from my furls unboxing over on my other channel. This is the Moonbeam, I think. This white, almost like silvery yarn. And this dark blue one, I think, is Laguna. And this green one, I wonder if I still have a tag somewhere. This tag says Midnight. I'm pretty sure that the dark blue is actually Midnight and the green is Laguna. Like, it's a turquoise green. I could be wrong, but anyway, it's Furls Wander yarn. And then this yellow, like pale gold at the bottom is Sandbar, I think. So it's perfect, right? So I was like, yeah, it's like the moonlight on the waves, and then the waves get greener and lighter, and then there's the sand. I love this so much. It's so soft and drapey, and it's taking forever to go around right now because I wanted to make it big enough that I wouldn't have any trouble moving my arms. But this is my second to last row, so it shouldn't be too much longer. I'm going to make a set of matching fingerless gloves. I'm not sure what exact sea witchcraft I'm going to be doing with that, but probably something. So that's exciting. I really want to add a second layer of like crocheting beads or pearls or something over it. I'm not sure if I'll do that on top or like I have some of that thin blue the sparkly yarn. This that I think is thin enough to go through beads, but I would tell you what yarn it is, but the entire label is in Russian. I did get it from Etsy though. I was I was trying to search for the mimosa yarn, which I was using for my blue lace wrap skirt. It is from Hobby Lobby, which I didn't know at the time. I'm not going to shame anyone for shopping or not shopping there. Even though I definitely don't like the people in charge of that store, of that company. You know, I'm trans, I'm gay, I'm a feminist, I'm pagan, yeah. But I felt like it was very fitting to be making a devotional garment for a pagan goddess with yarn from there. Especially considering the goddess was Inanna, who seems particularly like she stands for everything that they wouldn't like. Anyway, so yeah, I happened to find. So I was just searching for sparkly yarn on Google because I ran out. I had to get my mom to tell me what yarn that actually was. But before that, I did find some sparkly yarn and was like, I am compelled to buy this. I just have to. Okay, done. So I haven't known what to do with it, but I'll definitely find something. Okay, that is our current whips. I have others, but they're might not show them tonight. Like, still working on this on the black spiderweb poncho. I think that's going to be part of my Halloween costume, and I've been working on other parts of that too, but I'm not going to share it yet. So, right, the main. Oh, good, only 30 minutes. the main thing I was thinking that I'd really like to share is something I haven't really done before, but it's singing a song on here. So I post acapella videos sometimes on my other channel. I also have music on my Bandcamp where I sing with piano, but that takes a lot more work. So I know from experience the captions are not going to get any of this, so I will post a link in the description to the words of the song I'm going to sing, which is on my blog, Starstruck Awanid, about my path with Gwyn. And this particular song it's about the story I was talking about in here, Sons of the Sea. But it's also about my situation and kind of blending them, and it's especially about grieving the loss of not really a family relationship that existed, but one that I wanted to, if that makes sense. Kind of like what could have been, and recognizing that it's never going to be that way. I'm wondering whether to. I'm trying to decide whether to say something that would indicate who this person is. I think I'm alone downstairs, but I'm also thinking about, do I want to say it like for emotional reasons? But this song is called "A Lover Scorned," which is because of the. I just noticed that there's an ant on my phone, and now it's climbing up the ring light. I've been having trouble with ants. But anyway, it sounds weird when you know that it's a paternal relationship I'm talking about. But it is because of the deity named lover. So I felt like it was a cool pun, especially since there are many kinds of love, and I do feel like there's a certain amount of like my genuine love and respect for this person has been met with scorn in different senses of that word, like not just being scorned on the surface, but also just like when someone responds in a way that makes it impossible for you to reach out in the way you want to. So it's kind of like there's a scorning in that sense, if that makes sense. So yeah, most of what I could say about this I think is better said by the song. So I may have thoughts afterwards. So yeah, I'm gonna drink my iced tea and then I will sing it. Kind of excited because I haven't actually gotten to share the music of this song yet. So I'm hoping people that have already seen it on my blog will get to hear the tune now. I know a guy who charted outer space. If I set my jaw, you'll see his face. I know a guy who's charming, smart, and cool. I know a guy who smiles when big men rule. He told me that guy could have been Vikaro, or at least could share the song that shines in me. But that guy won't respect the souls around him. He's got cause enough to fear the howling sea. Because this ship is going down, but only one of us is drowning. I can see the God you've tied against the mast, for I'm his own. You're drowning out his voice, but he has heard our different choices. And when this castle pours out shells, I'm leaving here alone. And it's strange because you claim to serve the lover of the world, but you don't heed him calling with his mother's sea unfurled. I know a guy who taught me how to learn. I watch the rocket engines burn. I know a guy who taught me how to play. And when I fly away, that truth will stay. I asked a fairy king to be my father, disowned myself to grow into a man. It's not so much remembered love I'm missing. You could have rocked, but now you never can. Because this ship is going down and only one of us is drowning. I'm the flesh of him you've tied against the mast, so let me go. You've drowned my human voice, but you are here by your own choices. In silent and uncertain eyes, I'm pretty sure you know. Pitching my voice a bit lower for this part. I'm pretty sure you know. It's impossible to chain me here forever or for long. My presence tells the truth that you can't sing the lover's song. My thorn, he knows the true name of that shining golden sun. I'm sorry that we've come to this. My bonds must be undone. Because this ship is going down, and only one of us is drowning. The sea has come to take us, some for life and some for loss. She's come to take her boy. Come here, my love, and we'll be joyful. You should have known what happens when you tie me to a cross. When he gave me the last line of the song, or when it was inspired in me, it's kind of both. My inspiration comes from this deity by his various names. I really got chills, and it felt like a wham line, to borrow the word from TV tropes. Like, whoa, that was intense. And it felt like shots fired. It was like, wait, are you allowed to say that? I mean, yeah, but like, whoa. Because I come from a devoutly Christian family. Like, it's really important to them. And that's fine. Like, that's beautiful. I just wish they treated me and my religion the way that I want to be treated, with the same respect they're trying to show theirs. So this deity, I mentioned that there are several gods who I think can be him, um, at this like intersecting point, which is called the, or personified as um, the the one known as the lover in this context. And it was really interesting to me that he was starting to tell me, and I'm not saying you have to view it this way, but like for me, he was starting to show me this layer, or this view of things where he can be someone in the Christian religion who could also be called the lover or the shining sun, son. I feel like it's not the first time I found myself thinking, huh, as I learn more about Gwyn, he reminds me a lot of Jesus, which is weird because I mean it just adds insult to injury that they turned him into the devil basically, and or like combined him with the folkloric devil. But um and I know that Dionysus has also had that comparison made. Um so so it didn't really surprise me as much in the first part where he's like, it's weird because you claim to, actually I'm still talking in my own voice, but then I kind of blend into his in the rest of the song. But I'm like, you claim to serve the lover, and yet here he is, and you're not, and you're, so that that was a really interesting viewpoint though, because I hadn't had any of my deities say it so blatantly. And then in the last line, I was I was like, wait, what? What do you mean if they tie you to a cross? Because he's tied to the mast of a ship in this story, and I was thinking, well, okay, yeah, I guess it's a large upright wooden structure. I forgot until a friend pointed out, Brian actually, that ship masts have a cross beam. So this is a visual representation of how I feel sometimes when my gods tell me these mysterious things that kind of blow my mind. I'm like, what? I mean, that's wonderful and beautiful, and also like, holy shit, what? um, like sometimes you just have to take a moment and um, do a scram, um, or indeed, meh, right, Benrose? Yes. You just have to be like, meh. I guess there's no other way to express how intense it can be sometimes. So, yeah. You might have seen several references to rocket science and space or heard about them. That is this person's job in the song. And that's one of the things that has been it was always extremely cool growing up, because I got to go to his place of work, and I felt like Mars was my backyard in some ways, and that was really cool. And it's one of the things I grieve about, realizing this relationship cannot be what I want it to be, and it's not safe for me. Um, yeah. Also, like the thing with disowning myself. I might share this song later, or I mean, I'm planning to share it in one of my future albums. Because I have a lot of songs on the subject of my evolving relationship and probably eventual lack thereof with certain folks. So right now I'm not completely alone downstairs, so I'm just going to speak a bit more vaguely, if you don't mind. So there is a song where I had realized through a conversation with one of my siblings that I was never going to be acknowledged as my actual gender by this person that I'm talking about in the song I just sang. And so I instantly channeled that anger and hurt into writing a song. This was before I knew Gwyn by name, but I knew him as the Horned God, and in this one he happened to be in his fairy king form that he showed up in sometimes. So I was like, I told a story, a fairy tale about in the song about this prince who had an argument with the king and was like, okay, so I'm gonna leave and go ask the fairy king to, like, I just want to be his vassal or bard, basically. And then the king was like, the fairy king's like, sure, but you're also my son now. So that meant a lot to me. And yes, it's true that Gwyn and I do have multiple facets of our relationship. There's the god spouse thing, then like there is a father-son component. Then we're also brothers in the context of the Vikaro bath. So yeah, it's a lot more all in one than, you know, a human relationship would be. So I'm just about to the point where I can explain it without feeling completely weird, but it's a process. Like, it feels normal to me, but you know, I worry that sounds weird. But anyway, someone was just getting their laundry, so I think we're good to go now. I mean, we're just about at the end of the episode, but still. Now I can tell you that the other song I was talking about, I titled it with a really poignant and powerful title, which is just a single word, which describes how I was feeling, which is fatherless. And ever since that time, the Horned God, and then, you know, Gwyn, as I knew him later, has been very clear that no, he is that to me. And so that's been really meaningful. And the argument that the prince had in that song with the old king was, you have to be the princess. So it was basically the same argument, just like it was an argument that we haven't actually had, and I don't want to because I'm scared, and I'd rather just go live in my own place and not be able to set my boundaries. But yeah, that was, it's pretty clear if you know me, like what's, or even just like if you know, it's pretty easy to recognize as a trans narrative, I think, just in general. But oh, one really cool play on words. I mean, it's poignant, but still like is, so in the second verse I mention the rocket engines because I like this family member's whole job, but also like I used to watch launches a lot on the computer or on TV, and I would have this person explaining the various stages to me, like, oh yeah, now they're gonna um, drop the second lander or something like that, and it was just really cool to have that. And so then later when I say you could have rocked, but now you never can, that's a reference to Rocket. So like it's kind of a tie-in. And I feel that's appropriate because they also love rock music. So speaking of different kinds of music, this is basically my version of Perfect by Simple Plan, which I love because I just feel it. Unfortunately, I get it. Like, there's a lot of music I loved as a teen that I didn't necessarily get. Like, this particular one I loved because I was a big fan of Avatar The Last Airbender, and I was like, oh, it's a Zuko song. Like, yeah, it is, but now I also get it. And there are several songs by Evanescence that I was like, well, I get that there's a lot of angst here and like gothically beautiful and powerful music, but I don't really get what the song's about. And that was a good thing back then, because now I look at some of those songs and I'm like, oh, that's about an abusive relationship. Some of the songs I'm thinking of are, at least to me, that stand out are Going Under, Call Me When You're Sober, obviously. And I feel like there are others, but those are the ones that stand out right now that now I'm like, oh, wait, I get it. Yeah. So, oh, I didn't even mention that I'm back to my old tricks, by which I mean I'm conlanging again. I used to conlang as a teenager a lot, as well as world build. By conlang, I mean construct language. Conlang. It's what Tolkien did with the Elvish languages, and that one of those languages was my main inspiration. So it's similar, a lot similar to Quenya, the Elvish language in question, but my own conlang, it also has its own personality, which I love a lot, because like that's me. Like, so I've been finding different online communities and tools that I didn't have access to as a teen. And I started conlanging at like 13, maybe. So as soon as I started world building, I was like, okay, cool. Now I need a language, because that's what Tolkien did. So obviously that is the way. That was how I approached writing for a long time. It was like, okay, Tolkien did it. That is the way. I just need to do it, but like do it slightly differently. And and now I have developed my own style and taste in how I world build and tell stories and even make conlangs, but I still have parts of it that I'm like, I'm not sure what to do with it. It's just like almost like a recoloration of what Tolkien did. I don't want it to be that, but I also don't know how to change it. So thankfully, most of those parts have now been like woven into my own a story that's more me. Gwyn has actually helped a lot with a lot of the plot holes I had for years, which makes sense because my inspiration comes from him, and I think it always was, even before I knew him. And also there are things that I couldn't have figured out. Like I couldn't have seen, or plot holes I could not have filled with the understanding I used to have. Um, Both as I'm growing older and like, I mean, older than a teen, and like I have a new understanding of my own queerness and like the world's queerness and stuff, but also the worldview that I'm learning from my the deities and from my different spiritual paths is a necessary first step to be able to see the things that need to go into my world. So that's kind of cool to be able to finally look at these problems that I was like, how do I make the pieces fit? And then I realized, oh, I didn't have all the pieces, or I didn't clearly see the actual void even for what needed to go in there, or the shape of what was missing wasn't even clear to me, if that makes sense. So right, we need our goat moment. You don't have to say anything, but you can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. As I was moving him away, my ring got stuck on this. It has silver antlers on it, which get stuck on lots of things. So that's why he paused when going away. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and for listening to me sing and talk about my inner world, basically, like my emotional world and journey. So yeah. Starfish. The mermaid on my mug is reaching up to hold the starfish, so I feel like cheersing is like reaching out to the starfish. But yeah, anyway, have a, what do I say on this channel? Let's dance again at the next midnight.